Well, hello there, and welcome back to our four-part live stream series here, where we're primarily focusing on the role of neediness in our relationships and our relationship to neediness and how it impacts our partnerships. And so far in this live stream series, we've talked about the number one quality that makes you irresistible to a lover. We have talked about the radical truth about neediness. And then we also talked about the truth about why people pleasing is a passion killer. And so today we are going to take a look at a personal story of how I conquered my demons in love, at least for a period of time. And I refer to this as why too nice really means not good enough. And so, have you ever found yourself in a relationship where you're doing all the planning and compromising? And if you don't, you either don't see or hear from your partner at all, or they get angry at you for not calling, driving, planning, or doing whatever it is to make the relationship last. Maybe you feel like you are the person who initiates everything, including all the affection, touching, or even sex. And after a while, it starts to feel like everything is on your partner's terms. And that doesn't feel very good. You can never do enough, and whatever you do tends to go unacknowledged. And so eventually you start to feel frustrated, angry, and a little bit crazy. And so I wanted to share a personal story with you here today. I remember feeling so in love with someone that I couldn't see any other option than to just somehow make this work. But sometimes we have attracted what I'm going to call a difficult relationship so that we might awaken to consciousness. So in essence, these kinds of relationships are intended to sort of snap us out of it. So for example, when I was in my early 30s, I briefly dated somebody right after my divorce. And it was one of those fast and furious things that really had no label. And it kind of left me wondering if I had made most of it up in my head. And so tearfully, I shared my pain with a spiritual advisor and a psychic, and I asked her for some guidance and advice. And she suggested that I consider the joy that comes out of pleasurable and easeful partnerships, and why not start to shift my energy and my focus in that direction. But I was so hung up and attracted to this guy. And why didn't he love me the way that I loved him? I couldn't think about anything else. I was nitpicking and pulling apart every single little teeny tiny aspect in communication of the relationship, analyzing every small granular grain I could get out of it. And when she posed this question to me, another thought for the first time popped into my head, which I hadn't realized had been there before. And before I could say it out loud, she says, "Oh, Brianna, I can hear you already. You think if you're not in pain, then your art and your other creative works aren't going to be any good." And I burst out into sobs because she was right. I did think that way. I thought that I performed my best when I was at my most miserable. And if you took away my misery, I would not only be common, but worse yet, I would be mediocre. I would truly be the shit artist I always thought that I was. And every aspect of creative expression would become cliched or trite or uninteresting or somehow less authentic. And there wouldn't be anything special about me. And so there was nothing qualitatively interesting or appealing to me about contentment. It just seemed like a boring coward's way out of living life to its highest highs and its deepest depths. Because it was what gave my suffering meaning. And if my suffering was meaningful, then without my suffering, what meaning did I have? What purpose did I have? It was all meaningless. And that would send me down an even deeper spiral of feeling existential crisis, basically, right? So in some ways, that drama tended to prove my worth one way or the other, the drama of performing well enough to earn love. And so if there wasn't a competition, real or imagined in my head, in which there was something to prove, then there was this kind of deafening silence, a kind of black emptiness in which I had no way to define myself or conceive of what my true value really was. And so in essence, I would cease to exist in a true existential sense. And quite frankly, I was right. At least the part of my ego that I was over-identified with would die. It would have to die. this metaphorical death, in order for me in my entirety to truly grow out of that drama cycle. And so to realize that it was distracting me from seeing the real beauty in quiet moments of mediocrity. And even my assessment of commonness was a criticism that obscured the truest value and uniquely divine spark that resides in everything and is infinitely mysterious in its complexity. And so my advisor said to me, do you judge all works of art and poetry that stem from joy as mediocre or common? Have none of those things moved you just as much as things that were born of some kind of pain? And at that time, I have to tell you, I had not. I had not been moved by expressions of joy and happiness because I had not experienced for myself that kind of inspiration. Because words don't teach, and neither does logic. Only felt experience teaches us. But you do have a choice of which experiences you are going to pursue and which ones you will cling to tooth and nail, and which ones you will let go of to create space for new experiences, inspiring experiences, and dare I call them winks from the universe. And so it wasn't really until 4 years after that conversation, through a confluence of events in my life, that I finally decided that I was going to turn towards that Black emptiness rather than continue to desperately run away from it or entertain the hamster wheel in my head that kept me preoccupied with every granular detail that really had no tremendous impact on the moon's eye view of my life. And so ultimately I decided I would look for inspiration instead of clinging to my pain, instead of clinging to a specific person, because the only person who could write the story of my life is me. And the only person who could be the hero of my story was me. And so just as fast as I decided to do that and change my trajectory, that's how fast the drama started to seep out of my life. And I found a new self-definition, a much bigger self-definition, because I realized that there's inspiration all around me all the time. And growth did not have to be so painful. And pain doesn't make something like love more authentic. It just makes it more difficult. So why suffer so much? And so a relationship in which partners join together from this place of inspiration, as opposed to a fear-based need to be filled up with the other, is what I call an ascended partnership. And we talked about this when we created our playlist for love and New Age mysticism. And so this is a partner who already has a level of consciousness and is looking for purposeful building, as opposed to stimulating the most sensitive parts of each other to facilitate soul growth. And of course, this doesn't mean that in an ascended partnership, your soul stops growing, but it's more like that curriculum changes. The only criterion for attracting such a partner is that you are ready for them. And so the only question you have to ask is, are you ready? If your ideal lover walked through the door tomorrow, would you have zero fears and hangups and doubts about diving in head first? Would you feel completely confident and trusting that you are perfectly capable of being in a healthy relationship? And whatever comes, hey, you've got this. And if you struggle to respond with a fuck yeah, then you're probably not quite ready. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be perfect before you find the perfect love for you. But it does mean that you have to have the tools, and you have to have the construct, and you have to have the know-how to be able to deal with what may come, to understand that it's not good and bad. The world is not black and white, that it is this beautiful myriad of shades of gray. And once you learn some basic tools and techniques for being able to ride the wave, to weather the storm in such a way, it's okay whatever comes, because you have the ability to lean into your feelings, whatever they may be, and allow that to move through you as if riding a wave. And so if this sounds like something that you are interested in and you want to learn more about, today is the last day to sign up for Healing Attachment Wounds, which is my signature course, at the early bird rate of 30% off. And I haven't talked too much about the extent of the course. Today is our last day and promotion of the course and the early bird rate. So I'm going to give you a few more details here. If you want to learn more, you can just skip on over to the info page. I'll put a link to that in the caption of this video. But it's a course that offers 7 creative, fun, easy lessons over the course of 7 weeks. And it takes you from feeling lost and confused about your romantic relationships to really stepping into your fullest and what I call your most sovereign self, without having to talk in circles around your feelings for hours or even years on end with no tangible result. And that is because we use a psycho-spiritual approach to implementing creative arts interventions in the framework of attachment theory. So it is a body-based program. So we take all of this insight and we draw it down into the body, and we allow whatever charge has gotten caught up in the insecure attachment to be released through experiential processes and in the group process. So more specifically, we take a look at the intersections between attachment, complicated grief, and addiction. It was actually an exploration of complicated grief that led me down looking at attachment. We also look how to transform anxious feelings using these creative exercises, guided visualizations, and tapping into your intuition. And 6 signs of the anxious avoidant trap. We look at 4 parenting styles, 5 core brain systems, and also how to shed limiting beliefs. And we are also adding in 3 Someone's ringing my doorbell. We're also adding in 3 bonus sessions with the lovely Kristen Von Fox, Kyle Benson, and Sasha Fossa, looking at how we address couples counseling, looking at soul retrieval and guided journeying, visioning to help call back soul parts, and also sex therapy and erotic blueprints for how to address sexual intimacy in relationships. So again, today is the last day to sign up for that at the early bird rate. We are only accepting 8 members into this group, so definitely want to check that out. Any questions, you can comment below this thread, and hopefully I will see you on the inside.